With excitement around Boston College football at a level we haven't seen in a while, expectations have been going very high for the Eagles. We're going to give you 4 obtainable goals for Bill O'Brien in his first year in Chestnut Hill.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more win. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started. So we're getting into Bill O'Brien here now. This is now into the second week of his tenure. Things have started off with the hiring of his staff, and now we're starting to get some recruiting news as he's starting to make his impact there. We still haven't had the staff actually officially announced yet, but most of the guys that I've heard about are already on campus. So now, when you talk to fans, you're starting to get a level of excitement around this program that you haven't seen in a long time. Jeff Hafley brought some in 2019. There was excitement when he came in, but it was still a little tempered. Steve Addazio brought no excitement. No offense. When he got hired, it was just like, what? And then he came in and basically was as mediocre as you expected. And then Spaziani, there was no excitement around there. Now you bring in a legitimate head coach, a guy that's had experience both at the NFL and college level and a success at both. And the fans are feeding off of this. You see the schools pushing, more NIL initiatives, and they're getting more coverage in mainstream media, which is great for them. Uh, I hate being the guy that's been covering them through the bad times, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, look it, CBS is paying attention to us. Let's bark like a seal." But I get it. I get it. When you have a mainstream approach, you need to be covered by them, not just the 2747 guys. Now let's look at what Bill O'Brien should be held accountable for, because I've seen folks that are like, "Oh, you know, this is what we should be doing after year one, and this is blah blah blah." Here's the 4 things I think that BC should focus on for this first year. I'm going to start off with recruiting. Now, Jeff Hafley, when he left here, BC's recruiting ranking last year was I believe it was 94th in the country, behind such powerhouses as Eastern Michigan, Ohio, Georgia Southern, Troy, Fresno State, South Alabama, UTEP, Florida Atlantic, Southern Miss, UNLV. I mean, you guys get the point. Bad, 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 bad. And part of this, their grading of their players wasn't awful. It was better than most of those guys around there. It was just a smaller class, so it's a little bit rigged. But still, even if you look at the numbers of who came in, you had no 4 stars. You had no instant impact recruit that's coming in here. That you don't have like a. You remember back in the Dazio days, you had Harold Landry. You knew he was going to come in and play right away. You had Jaden Skeet last year. You didn't have any of. You don't have any of that this year. I would be stunned if there's a recruit that's going to come in and play right away. Now, O'Brien has a chance to make that up, and I'm not sure what size of a class he's going to go for in this first year, but I have to think that the buzz around Bill O'Brien, the fact that he's coached at Alabama, coached at Ohio State, coached Tom Brady, Deshaun Watson, all that good stuff, is going to pay dividends, because you still got Darrell Wyatt. Darrell Wyatt is a very good recruiter. He's the guy, wide receiver coach who recruits in Texas. He's a good recruiter. Can he get BC to, let's say, the goal would be 45? That's basically, in the 247 recruiting rankings. That's basically jumping half. But is that unrealistic? I don't know. It all depends on the size of the class. So I'm gonna preface this. He could have a class in like the 50s or 60s if it's a small class again. But if he pulls in one, two, three, 4 stars, that's fine with me. So it's either or right here. Like, is he have a bigger class and they get higher, say 45 ish, or is it in the 50s or 60s with a bunch of 4 stars that are instant prime impact players? I think those are two. That's one goal. It's one, with two like branches of how it could work. But I think for recruiting, that's going to be a big one because he's going to get that recruiting back up because it was limping by the end with Jeff Halfley. There was sparks there, but by the end of like when the season started, all the decommitments started flowing in. It started getting ugly. So that's goal number one. Goal number two is we're going to look at the offensive side of the football, and I'm looking at Thomas Castellanos. And Bill O'Brien has uh, a reputation for his quarterback work, and rightfully so. He's worked with Bryce Young and, as I said, Deshaun Watson, and even Matt McGloin. We talked about this on previous episodes. I'm not going to repeat it over and over again. But I look at Thomas Castellanos as an incomplete player. He's exciting, and he has a huge, huge ceiling, but passing wise, there's a lot left to be desired. And on my previous episode, I talked about how he's the guy that can have the biggest pieces to gain. But what would be the reasonable goal Bill O'Brien could set for Thomas Castellanos to improve? Like, the first thing I look at when I look at Castellanos' numbers is his interception to touchdown ratio. It's basically 50-50. He had 15 touchdown passes to 14 interceptions. That's not good. And if you look deeper into the deeper analytics, he threw some of the most dangerous passes in the country. I think there was Mitch brought it up here on a show earlier that throwing into double coverage, missing receivers badly, that kind of stuff. So what could be a goal for Castellanos is I think he's going to throw the ball more. He threw it 330 times this past season. He's going to stay healthier. I think he's going to throw it probably 450 times this year. I think that's an easy way to say it. Should I say that his interception should be cut in half? That's a very worthy goal, but I'm not sure if that's realistic. I would say what I would love to see is his touchdowns go up to 20 instead of 15, and his interceptions drop to 10. That way you have twice as many touchdowns as you do interceptions, and it looks a lot cleaner. And honestly, like the amount of mistakes you've made are much smaller, right? So I think that is one piece. I'd also like to see his, and I think this is what's going to happen based on some of the comments that O'Brien made during that Pete Thamel interview. I'd love to see his passing yards per game go up. He's at 172 yards per game right now, but you look back at the last couple games, from the Connecticut game where I think a lot of folks think the injury happened. He didn't hit 172 yards a game, like a single game after that. Before that, he hit it 5 times, 6 times. Excuse me. Can he do that? Can he get his yards per game up to like 210? I feel like with a good quarterback coach and with some good wide receivers, that shouldn't be a big difference. It's 40 yards a game though. That is a big difference, but it's a reasonable goal, right? So that is one goal. And I think if you can get Castellanos, to lower his turnovers while increasing his productivity through the air, that offense is going to be much more lethal, and it's going to keep him healthy, which I think is a big, big thing. Now, in our second segment, I'm going to look at 2 more goals. I'm going to look at one on the other side of the ball and a team-wide goal that I think is super important for BC next year. You're going to want to hear my thoughts about all of that in just a moment. Now, college football and football is over, which is a bummer. But basketball is still here, and I love watching the NBA, and I love watching college hoops. And you can get your first buckets with your first bet on FanDuel. America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. You can bet on anything. You want, 3 points made, you want points, rebounds, blocks. You pick your player that you feel comfortable about. You make your parlay with the points per game. It's so easy to use. I love FanDuel, and the part that I love is the interface. You know, Sometimes you go into like an app like this, and it's hard to figure out what you're doing. FanDuel takes all the guesswork out. If you've been thinking about trying to, do some sports gambling, FanDuel is the place to go. And when you win, they pay you out instantly. So just visit fanduel.com/locked on and shoot your shot with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black. Thank you all for joining up with me today. If you have not done so already, head on over to Eagle Insider. I'm the editor and publisher, and I have a great staff, including Beacon Street Hoops, BC hockey blogger, Mitch Wolf, Kate Otis. I have Skip McCarty covering baseball now. And we have so much great content coming up now from all the great voices of Boston College sports. You got to check it out. Hopefully, I'll have some of those guys on later this week as well. So, talking goals here. And a goal for BC has to be on that defensive side of the ball. And my goal that I have set in my brain for Bill O'Brien in this first year, and for Tim Lewis, the new defensive coordinator, is they need to find an identity. They need to figure out what they want to do and find it and do it well. Because the BC's defense last year didn't do anything well. They were near the bottom of they were the bottom of the country in sacks. They struggled against the pass. They struggled against the run. They didn't create many turnovers. They were just there. They had a moment here or there. They were inconsistent. BC needs to figure out what that is. And it could be something as simple as they're tough. They're tough to run on. They're physical. They don't miss tackles. They don't make stupid mistakes. That could be an identity. It could be that they're relentless as a pass rushing team, and that they get up and figure out how to get Donovan Azaraku or Neto Ekpala to that quarterback. And they're a good pass rushing team. That could be an identity. They could be that they're ball hawks. Maybe with your new defensive backs coordinator, you feeling that you can get to that ball and make big plays. You've got a bunch of transfers coming in. Maybe they could do that. I don't care what it is. BC's defense has to figure out how to do something well. Because if this team wants to take that next step, and I don't care how good Thomas Castellanos can improve, if the defense plays like it did for most of last year, they're not going to win more games than they lose. They've got to get better. And that is going to start with O'Brien and his staff. You're bringing in Tim Lewis. And apparently there's a lot of Tim Lewis fans out there, because I've been getting a lot of messages about how I don't know what I'm talking about. But I have said I don't know much about Tim Lewis because he hasn't coached in anything that many people watch in 15 years. That being said, he has a reputation of being a guy that can drill home culture, that can drill home an ethic, that can drill home toughness, and that's good. So to that piece, I'm very excited for him, because that's something BC needs. But they need to end this year with a defense that's playing with a chip on their shoulder and has figured something out. Because if this defense can figure out whether, if they get enough personnel to become good with the pass rush, or they're good at, making interceptions like some BC teams have in the past, that's a step in the right direction. Because then you can start building your defense and getting guys to buy into that system. Just right now, they don't have anything. So that's one piece. And then folks are probably listening to this with like goals, and they're going to say to themselves, okay, so Bill O'Brien, let's talk win goals, right? Yeah, let's talk win goals. And this is year one. And I looked at this, I keep saying it, and you folks have brought it up too. This schedule is brutal. You're going to get in that first month Michigan State, Missouri, and Florida State. Michigan State it was bad last year, but they got a brand new coach who's, arguably the best hire, one of the best hires of the offseason. You've got Missouri, who's got the best wide receiver in the country, and Florida State, who's going to be pissed off about what happened last year, about everything. Just they're just angry about everything, right? So what should be a reasonable grade, win total for this year? Folks are going to be looking at this going, "Oh, he's got to win 8 games." Is that realistic though? I mean, you may think it is. I don't. I don't think that's a reasonable goal going into this year, saying, "Oh, they got to win 9, 8 or 9 games," because it's going to take a year or two to get things going. 2, 3 years maybe. I think a reasonable goal is to make a bowl. Just win 6 games and then get that, just like halfway to this year, win that 7th in the bowl game. I know that seems like lowered expectations, but given what I thought Halfley was going to do with this schedule, that's saying that BC's going to be in better shape. They got a tough road ahead of them. If they can pull out 6 wins off that schedule, Bill O'Brien has his team going in the right direction, and that should be goal number 4. Now, what do you think? And about any of this, like, do you have a goal that you think is reasonable for Bill O'Brien in this first year? Leave them in the comment section below. I want to hear what you have to say. Now, in our final segment, it was a busy weekend for Boston College sports. We're going to get into as much as we can in this weekend roundup, as we do every Monday. We'll be right back. This is Locked On Boston College, AJ Black. I apologize if you're listening to this podcast on an app. Um, it's coming out later. We are switching over our system to a new software system, so I couldn't push it out before noon. So just for today, it's going to be a weird timing. Go back to your normal morning release. Other than that, but thank you all who have been listening on YouTube. Our YouTube numbers have been nuts. Thank you, each and every one of you who have done all of that, and all you everydayers out there. Thank you. I see you and I feel you. All right. So this weekend, let's wrap this up with all the things that happened in BC sports, because it was crazy busy with BC sports, both with the winter sports and with spring ball for baseball. First of all, let's talk about women's lacrosse, who is an absolute and they're an absolute train right now. We have 2 teams that are playing at such a high level, and women's lacrosse is one of them. Now they played 2 games on one on Thursday and one on Saturday. They played Robert Morris on Thursday and won 23-2, and then they played at Pitt on Saturday and won 19-3. This team is killing everybody. Now, so over the last 2 games, well, actually it goes 3 games, they've won by a total. They've only let up an average of 2.3 points, goals per game, and they're averaging about 20. Things are not going to get easier though. They get to play Northwestern, but this team is so good. They're so good. I mean, just in this this last game, you saw a whole bunch of women scoring, and you had Rachel Clark with 4 goals. You had McKenna Davis with 5 assists. You had Cassidy Weeks with 3 goals and Kayla Martello with 4 goals. They are an absolute wagon right now. Best team BC has, possibly with this other team, which is hockey. Hockey played 2 games at home against Vermont. Vermont can be tricky. I mean, they knocked BC out of the Hockey East tournament a couple years ago, right? Well, BC on Friday night took them to the woodshed, winning 7-1, and then beat them again on Saturday 4-2. BC now has solidified that they're getting the quarterfinals at Hockey East at home. They are I think they're all but guaranteed a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Now it just depends on where they're going to get placed, and we'll talk more with BC Hockey Blogger what that is. But I mean, this team is so good. On Friday you had multiple goal scorers. You had, sorry, I just lost my place. You had ooh, sorry, hold on a second. 2 goals by Gautier. Sorry, Gasso had a goal. You had a goal from Lucas Gustafson and Aiden Hershuk. I'm sorry, I got to totally screw his name up. And then 3 assists from Will Smith. So you had a bunch of different guys that are all contributing. This team is deep. They got top end talents, and they're playing at a level that's well above everyone else. I mean, it feels like right now BC hockey is just playing towards their eventual goals, which is a rematch with BU at TD Garden in the Hockey East Finals, and then another rematch with BU in the national championship. It just feels like destiny right now, right? They just need to keep playing each other. So that happened this weekend. Those are the 2 good things. On the sort of good, BC baseball won 2 out of 3 against Texas-Arlington. I don't even know who Texas-Arlington is. I'm not even going to pretend to know, but we have recaps of that up on the site. They won on Sunday 17-8. The bullpen basically let Texas-Arlington come back. They were up 8-7 last I had checked, and then BC's offense just went berserk in the 8th inning, scoring 9 runs and then another run in the 9th to seal it. So BC's 4-2. Can't complain. They're definitely a flawed team, though. They're not perfect. Their pitching, their bullpen, other than Tyler Mudd, who is a transfer from Holy Cross, has been looking very suspect, which is worrisome when you're not playing teams named UT Arlington. So that's another one. And then let's get to the really bad news. Basketball. Basketball looks completely lost. Earl Grant, I don't know what's going on with this team. They played NC State and didn't look the least bit competitive in this game. You saw Devin McLaughlin get ejected with a flagrant 2. Quinton Post again gets in foul trouble. And then they just NC State's not a great team, but they make them look that good. And now you get UVA coming up, and it's bad. And I don't know what the answer is for this, because to me, it looks a lot like coaching, because the team looks undisciplined. They make a lot of stupid mistakes. They make a lot of dumb turnovers. They look completely flat every single game coming out of the locker room. They battle back, but then it's never enough. But I don't know. I feel like what happens, a lot of folks are like, oh, fire Earl Grant. He's not going anywhere yet. You got to kind of he didn't completely tank this season. He's definitely lowered the expectations of what you're expecting from this team. But this seems like the year that's going to happen where there's going to be a red wedding of his coaching staff. I feel like his coaching staff is going to get axed, because the offense looks bad. The defense looks unprepared. He needs more help on the bench. So I think that's what's going to happen next. I don't think Earl Grant's going to get fired. So that's my thoughts. Thank you all so much for listening today. I was away last week, so the schedule was a little bit inconsistent, and I only did 4 shows. I'm back. I'm ready to do 5 shows this week. So hopefully you have subscribed on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Thank you all for listening, and I'll see you again for tomorrow's episode of Locked On Boston College, your team every day.